everybody.
All right. Now we can start.
Do you want me to sit here, right?
Well, it doesn't
No,
matter.
you sit to the.
Okay.
Tap me on the
So you're
shoulder.
representing them as well as me, so I suppose.
All right, good morning. It's 10:31, so I'll call the New York State Cemetery Board meeting to order. Have a full agenda, a huge full agenda. Just to introduce myself, I'm Mark Patterson. I represent Walter Mosley, Secretary of State.
Thomas Fuller, representing Dr. James McDonald, Commissioner of Health, Department of Health.
And I'm Jill Faber, representing Attorney General Letitia James.
Okay, so we have a full house. Just point of privilege, introduce David Gonzalez, who's replacing Rob Vanderblitz. So we're glad to get rid of the old guy. Got somebody competent for a change.
My goodness. Good morning, everybody. David Gonzalez.
All right, he's our interim attorney. First order of business is to approve the minutes of the previous meeting. Does anybody have any objections or corrections or suggestions? None here. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the previous meeting as distributed.
Second to it.
All in favor? Aye.
Hi.
Minutes are approved. Next is our legislative and regulation report. You're on the hot seat. Do you have anything to report?
No, I don't.
We will talk a little bit about regulation in a second. Do you want to do that now or do you want to do that in your report?
I'll do it now. I'm trying to misstate anything. So there have been two relatively recent legislative changes. One, the end of 2023, which was modified in January 24. Another in December of 2024. The first change relates to abandonment of cemeteries and abandonment funds for towns. It specifically allows a town to seek abandonment funds for cemetery that is in quote unquote imminent danger of abandonment, but not necessarily yet abandoned. It does other things too, but that's sort of the one that we focused on in the regulations. The more recent legislation repeals the modified total return statute that passed, I want to say about 10 years ago, a little more than 10 years ago, and replaces it with a different provision allowing cemeteries on notice to the board to withdraw a certain amount of trust principal in addition to income. Both statutes leave an important term undefined, imminent danger in the case of that statute, and excess for excess principal in the case of the other statute. We thought it would be helpful to clarify things by addressing that through proposed regulations. In addition, we are contemplating and proposing a substantial rewrite of our regulations for all applications for money from the vandalism fund, be it for vandalism, hazardous monuments, or abandonment either to cemeteries or to either to towns or cemeteries. And while we were at it, we made a couple of technical corrections, like getting our address updated. We haven't yet proposed regulations. There are provisions of the State Administrative Procedure Act that direct agencies to essentially solicit input from stakeholders before beginning the formal rulemaking process. So that's what we're looking to you guys to do to allow us to do that. I mean, to some extent, we've already done that because the regulations are on our website for any and all to see, but they're specific.
There's a draft regulation.
The proposed, they're not even draft regulations. They're a draft of a potential proposal. They're several steps away from making anything formal, but they're meant to reflect what our, at least, division's thinking might be, should we get the green light to go ahead to actually propose regulations. But we know that these are going to affect people and kind of want to hear from them. The three main stakeholders we've identified would be the State Association of Cemeteries and the regulated cemeteries themselves. As all of the provisions would affect them. Obviously, our address, not so much, but they all potentially affect cemeteries. The imminent danger regulations are probably most relevant to towns. The pieces of the proposed regulations that address hazardous monuments might have some impact on monument dealers who do this kind of work. And the implementation of the new withdrawal of principal provisions will obviously impact the cemeteries that would potentially use it. So what we're asking you, and I don't know if you or I are going to actually read the resolution for the record, but we have drafted a proposed resolution that essentially you would direct us to reach out to stakeholders, including without limitations, the folks I just mentioned, and solicit their comments. We were contemplating giving them 45 days to comment. Again, this is not a formal rulemaking process. There's no magic to the number. It just seemed like a reasonable amount of time to give people time to digest them, but also keep things moving. So that would be until April 25th, which conveniently is Friday. So ends a week rather nicely. And we would contemplate for some of them, if possible, actually having either virtual or sit-down meetings with them to solicit feedback, because it's an easier way of learning things. With others, if people just want to email us, we'll read anything from anyone. But as part of being able to say when we get, or if and when we get to formal proposed rulemaking, that we did in fact solicit feedback from people potentially affected, and here's what they said.
Okay. Mark, are you okay with Louis reading the proposed resolution?
Sure. All right, so let me open that up. This is on the website. It's already been.
No, I'll make a
circulated.
motion, which is.
Well, I think,
read
well,
it.
I read it and then you make the motion.
Yeah.
So it's, whereas the New York State Department of State Division of Cemeteries, the division, has drafted proposed regulations to implement legislation signed by, I'm questioning my capitalization of the word legislation, signed by the governor in 2023 and 2024 relating to cemeteries in imminent danger of abandonment and withdrawals of trust principal from cemetery trust funds, Chapter 72 of the laws of 2023, as amended by Chapter 17 of the laws of 2024, and Chapter 656 of the laws of 2024, respectively, and make other technical changes to its regulations. And whereas the New York State Administrative Procedure Act, SAPA, provides that an agency should, as part of its regulatory flexibility analysis, actively solicit the participation of small businesses and local governments. And whereas SAPA further provides that an agency should, as part of its rural area flexibility analysis, ensure that public and private interest in rural areas have been given an opportunity to participate in the rulemaking. And whereas the division has already publicized its draft proposed regulations for consideration by the New York State Cemetery Board, Cemetery Board at its March 11th, 2025 meeting. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Cemetery Board directs the division to solicit input and comments from potentially interested stakeholders concerning the draft proposed regulations, including but not limited to the New York State Association of Cemeteries, the New York State Association of Towns, and the New York State Monument Dealers Association. Stakeholders that want to provide comment before the publication of a notice of proposed rulemaking are encouraged to do so no later than April 25th, 2025.
Okay. Make that motion. We have a second and we'll have discussion.
A second.
Second. So now let's have a discussion. I mean, all I would say is I think this is a fairly, sensible step. It does not mean that we will still go through a notice of proposed regulations where public comments will be solicited. And we have a process where those are considered as to whether they're significant or not. This is an interim step. Again, trying to reach out to stakeholders. David, did you have anything else that you wanted to add?
No, just to pick up on what Mark said, it's an opportunity for any interested parties to request any changes, to discuss, ask any questions before the agency and the board considers publishing a notice of proposed rulemaking. At that point, any changes would have to be assessed in a assessment of public comment.
And the board will have, if the proposed regs are on the board. I don't know if they've been distributed particularly to the board members, but they're
They're in the
accessible.
board packet.
In the board
There will be
packet.
stuff
So the board will have its own opportunity to look at the regulations and discuss them at some point.
Right, I mean, I specifically, unless people on the board had a major problem with the direction we were going in, I would actually ask that you not go too far into the weeds now, because some of the weeds might actually
Yeah,
improve
yeah.
in this process.
I agree with that.
You can look at something that's more like a finished product. On the other hand, if you have any significant substantive issues, then we shouldn't go any further with this version.
So, any other discussion from other members of the board? Jill, do you have anything to add? You know, we don't always do this, so I think it's a positive step. Lots of things in the regs that we want to be able to get right. So, I have a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion is approved. Again, the proposed regulations are on our website, and we invite anyone to provide us with feedback, informal feedback on them as they're drafted. Okay, any other legislation or regulations that we want to
Given
cover?
how often we do rulemaking, I think that's quite enough under the regulations now.
Well, slap me around. All right, Louis, anything on the division report?
First of all, this is Jessica's first meeting that she's attending, so I'd like to welcome Jessica Rosario. She is our new investigator in Binghamton, or based in Binghamton. She'll be covering the southern tier and other parts adjacent to that. To the extent we need two investigators doing stuff in New York City, we anticipate, since she's from the city, we anticipate dragging her down there every now and then as well. Hope she won't mind too much. And as I think a lot of you guys know, when we inspect crematories, we generally have two people doing it. So she'll probably get to go to some other regions doing that as well for training and just for a second set of eyes. So wanted to welcome her. I, at the risk of sounding like a broken record, I have another announcement about Alicia's employment. I continue to play musical chairs. Alicia is our former assistant director. Before that, she was an associate accountant. After that, she was before that, but after being assistant director, she was also a senior accountant, and she is now back to being an associate accountant. Most relevant for anyone out there in TV land, if you are essentially Oneida County West, your accountant will be reporting to Alicia, and if you are east of there in New York City, Natisha will be supervising those accountants. Previously been the other way around, so we're back when Carrie was associate accountant there, so we just sort of flipped the territories. So obviously, welcome back, and your main point of contact, though, should remain your assigned accountant for your region. You can always, of course, email cemeteries@dos.ny.gov or call the Albany office if you don't know who that is, or you can't reach them, or if you have questions in general. We know where to find our people. I think that's all of our staffing updates of current staff. In terms of future staffing, we are seeking to backfill Alicia's most immediately former position, in other words, another senior accountant in Albany. And we are also seeking to, and we have, but we are actually in the process of recruiting a second senior accountant in New York City. The job is, quite frankly, way too much work for one person, even for someone who's really good. So, which we fortunately do have, but we need help. So that is I don't know, people not working for the state probably are not familiar with the New York Helps program. I'm going to delve into it for a second, just because it's an important, it's relevant. We are now allowed to hire people who meet the minimum qualifications, even if they aren't on civil service lists. It's through a pilot program called New York Helps. I'm probably paraphrasing loosely, and hopefully council, I didn't choose something that's like so far off base that council will have to step in, but we can hire people directly who haven't necessarily taken the test. There are some qualifications and provisions and legal throat clearing that come with such a hire, but the bottom line is that it allows us to cast a broader net. So if people know of people who have a BA and a BA and was it 12 credits or 24 credits? A substantial number of credits in accounting or tax. They are eligible to apply for this and they want to work downstate, 24 credits. And they're eligible to work, then they are interested in working in New York City for us. We have a position that we're recruiting for right now. So please encourage number-minded people with the right qualifications to send in their resumes.
Anything else?
Yeah, Clean Up Your Cemetery Day is coming up soon. It will be on April 26th. That's the last Saturday in April. I'm gonna recognize a couple of people on this one. Lisa Dooley for coming up with the concept when she'd been here for precisely 1 month. And it's a fantastic idea. It's based on the state's popular I Love My Park Day. The reason it occurs when it does is the big time for cemetery visitations. Sorry to all your dads out there, is Mother's Day and then it's Memorial Day. So the idea is to get people into cemeteries and do some light volunteer cleanup work before Mother's Day and Memorial Day, but after snow season. So that's kind of the end of April is kind of the sweet spot for that. I want to make clear, this is not our program. We're not doing this. We're really sort of a facilitator and publicizer of this, although we do have some resources, mostly flyers and stuff like that, and ideas of how to raise money and contact people available to cemeteries that are interested. But it's a cemetery program. It's the cemetery's insurance that's covering people. It's the cemeteries who are responsible for providing whatever supplies you need, like lots of contractors' bags. Some things that people did last year were, picking up sticks, raking leaves, cleaning out just junk that accumulates throughout the winter. No real heavy lifting. We don't really want untrained volunteers coming in with chainsaws, but sort of light cleanup stuff to pretty things up and to sort of raise the profile of your local cemeteries. Let people in the town know, hey, we're there. We're a volunteer-run organization. We need your help. Oh, and by the way, if you want to stay involved, we would love that. So that's a subtext of a not so subtle subtext of the program. We are anticipating doing our own publicity on it. So far, we have 45 cemeteries that have indicated they're going to participate. That's up from 27 last year. One thing I'll add in case anybody who out there is not at a regulated cemetery, and Dave, you can tell your people we are happy to publicize unregulated cemeteries participating as well. This is not because this isn't us funding it or doing anything regulatory. If a local church cemetery or even a private cemetery wants to get people in and help out, we're happy to throw their names on the list of people participating. Last year, we did have one non-regulated cemetery in Staten Island that participated. So I'd especially encourage any of you who are listening downstate or know small volunteer-run cemeteries downstate to encourage them to get involved. Last year, our uptake on this was almost exclusively mid-Hudson, north and west. We got like nobody further south or east than that. And there's no reason that should be the case because we do have small volunteer-run cemeteries down there. Anyway, it's the date again, April 26th, Saturday, April 26th. And the time is flexible. If you want to do something on a different date and you want us to publicize it, no promises, but we can talk to our communications team and see whether there's a way to do that. We made a philosophical decision not to do that last year because it was our first year. We really didn't want to confuse people. But given that we were able to pull this off, everyone was able to pull this off successfully last year, there might be a little more bandwidth to publicize other dates. I can't make any promises. I know there were a couple cemeteries last year who said our cleanup is mid-April, so we're not going to do it. Might be able to get out the word for you this year. So if the email and phone number we gave out before, if you are in that situation or have any questions, feel free to call in. We do, once we're taking, we have a cutoff for saying I'm interested of this Friday. the truth of the matter is you could tell us the day before you're interested, but this Friday is our deadline for getting people in so that we are sure we'll be able to include your name in whatever publicity we do. We do anticipate doing a follow-up call with any new participants to go over ground rules like what we do and will not provide, what you might think about to make this successful, and we can put you in touch with people who did it last year. That was altogether too long, but I think it's a fantastic initiative, and I'm very proud that we started doing it and wanted to toot our collective horn a bit. I also wanted to recognize this year Sarah Levin and Nathan McCarthy for their efforts in coming up with the materials and disseminating them and staying on top. And of course, our whole communications team, because they're the ones who really do the publicizing.
Okay, thank you, Louis. Anything else? Any questions of Louis'
Do you
report?
want to say anything about the annual reports, help?
Oh, do we have any left? We have any
We don't
left?
have any left,
We-
but
We have
three left?
Okay,
We have two on
So-
the 13th and one on the 25th.
so we've had one on the 14th?
Two on the 13th and one on the 25th.
Okay, so they're on our website, right?
Hmm.
Okay, so we've, our accountants have gone out to various locations and held office hours for people who need help filling out their annual reports. We do have 3 more sessions, 2 on the 13th, 1 on the 25th. That's all on our website. There's a tab right on our homepage that you can just click on, and we do want people to RSVP for those. If you can't make it, please just call the Albany office and we'll put you in touch with your accountant and they can find a time to talk to you individually. If you have the ability to do a Zoom, Teams, or WebEx call, we can send you a link for that. We generally use Teams ourselves. And we can then share screens and be able to actually walk you through stuff more than you'd be able to do in just a regular call. Annual reports are, generally speaking, due March 31st. Anyone who wants an extension, I do look like I have something to add. I'm going to add one more thing first. Anybody who wants an extension of 30 days has to ask, no questions asked, you get it. If you need an extension of more than 30 days, we're pretty nice about those too, but you do have to explain why you need more than 30 days on that extension. Alicia, go ahead.
There is a video tutorial, how to do the
Correct.
annual report on our website. It's very good.
We use that to remember Carrie by when we miss her. We watch it. I'm just kidding, but yeah, Carrie Ferezzi, our former associate accountant / assistant director, recorded that. It should answer most of your questions, but there's always, I've been here 11 years. No 2 weeks pass when I don't get a question that I can't answer off the top of my head. I am sure that as you're filling out annual reports, you're probably having a similar experience. There's always one little thing that you need to figure out. We're here to help. Please call. And we also have, I forgot, 2 Cemetery 101 sessions coming up. These are a little unusual. We are not running them. These are through the New York State Association of Cemeteries. They are part of their regional meetings. One is March 26th in Cheektowaga, to be precise, at Mount Calvary Cemetery. Mount Calvary has multiple locations. Look on our website should have a link to NISAC's website where they have the precise location where it's taking place. I have ended up in the wrong place at Mount Calvary before, so check which one is that first. The second one on March 27th will be at Whitehaven Memorial Park, just outside of Rochester, Pittsford to be precise. For both of these, NISAC is charging a nominal fee. In addition to our Cemetery 101, they have programming, a legal update, and a couple of other things on in the morning. And we generally, as regulators, find their information to be useful, even when we don't always agree with it, and which we usually agree with them. So I obviously am not encouraging people to go pay money to a private organization, but I do think, given how little they're charging, this would be money worth spent if you've never participated in one of NISAC's events. The regional conferences in particular tend to draw from smaller cemeteries in the area as compared to their 2 statewide meetings. And I think there's a lot of peer-to-peer discussions and learning that take place at these meetings. And I've regularly attended their Oneonta regional meeting, and they're just terrific questions. And I learn a lot from their questions, and I think everybody else there does too. So if, I believe, Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe your sign-up fee covers a year's membership at NISAC too,
As well as lunch.
as well as lunch.
And breakfast.
But no donuts. The donuts are unique to the Oneonta Regional is best known for the donuts from the Sydney Price Chopper, which are actually phenomenally good. So again, the dates are March 26th and 27th. So that will be, if that's not on our website yet, it will be by the end of the day. I'm supposed to double check that we updated it properly, and I haven't had a chance.
Any questions of Lewis's?
I'm gonna press mute on myself.
Well, I do think that and congratulations to the cemeteries themselves for the Cemetery 101. It's really their work, so that's great. And I also think our, recently increased trainings of both the Cemetery 101 and the filling out the annual report helpful. We do encourage people to file online if they can. And this is one of the ways that you can get some extra help doing that. So thank you to the staff for putting it together.
Might I interject on the annual report? I do have stats on the annual reports received so far this year. We've received 447, of which 243 came in online, representing 54% of the reports so far received.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to vandalism report. It was mailed to the board.
Everybody,
Any questions about the vandalism report?
any questions on the report? We are on track right now to have, we'll pay out about 1.85 of the 2 million appropriation. We sent upstairs to fiscal for payment fiscal year, so we're
And we've
right on
incurred
the edge of,
over that, yeah.
yeah.
We'll talk when we're done to see if we can pay that extra 150 as well.
All right. Again, any questions of the division of the vandalism report? All right, next order of business is vandalism applications. We have one application for dangerous monuments.
Might I interrupt again?
Yeah.
The dollar amount on the agenda is incorrect. It should be 38,655.72, not 665.
But we're trying to take full responsibility because I did not cross-reference those after last month's mismatch, even though I said I would.
All right,
So flagellation with a wet noodle. sometimes.
Expired. Okay, so the first and only vandalism application is from West St. Johnsbury Cemetery in Montgomery County for 31 stones in the amount of $38,655.72. Is there someone presenting that to the board?
Corey, is this you?
No, that's me.
Oh, it's you, Len? Sorry. Oh, Montgomery, yeah, sorry.
Good morning, Len Green from the division. We have the application for the repair of 31 hazardous monuments located in West St. Johnsville Cemetery, which is a small cemetery in the village of St. Johnsville, Montgomery County. The applications is, I visited the cemetery, was able to determine that all 31 monuments are leaning dangerously and need of repair. All the monuments under application are very old, and cemetery was unable to locate the mailing addresses for any of these lot owners. They ran an ad and they had no response for 3 consecutive weeks. The ad was run and then no response to the ad. The newest monument is dated from 1921. So based upon all this information is provided, it's our understanding the cemetery is determined lot owners cannot be found. We received 2 estimates to repair the damage. Both estimates propose to pour foundation at a depth of 42 inches, and the one estimate from Humphrey offered a 10-year warranty, and the other estimate from McPhee did not provide a warranty. So this does appear to me legitimate claim, and I recommend approval in the amount of $38,655.72, which includes the legal fee for the ad and for the lower of the two estimates for Humphrey Memorials.
Okay. Anybody have any questions of Len? Council, is there anything to add to that?
No.
All right, so I'll make a motion to approve the application sent from West St. Johnsville Cemetery, Montgomery County, in the amount of $38,655.72 in honor of Rob, subject to the availability of funds.
So I text them and tell them,
Do you have a second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor? Aye. Application is approved. We have some other book business. We have,
actually, we have an addition to the regulatory report first that I neglected, Rob and I neglected last month and
Yeah.
council caught.
Oh, thank you, Mark. Thanks, Louis. So I just wanted to flag, every year during the month of January, there's a list of state agencies that are required to publish in the state register a document called a regulatory agenda. It's a requirement of the State Administrative Procedures Act, and the purpose is for the agency, and Department of State is one of the agencies that's supposed to do this. The purpose is for the agency to identify possible rulemakings that the agency may do in the upcoming calendar year. And under the State Administrative Procedure Act, rulemakings that are referenced in the regulatory agenda, they're not a promise and they're not binding. So if the agency lists something on the regulatory agenda that they don't get to that year, there's no requirement that they do it. But since we covered rulemakings, I wanted to flag, because the whole idea behind the regulatory agenda is to announce to the world that this may be coming up. The Department of State did publish its regulatory agenda in the January 29th issue of the State Register. So January 29th, 2025, it's issue 4. That the State Register, of course, is available on the website of the Department of State. And I have it in front of me. It looks like the DOS regulatory agenda appears on page 92 of that edition. And I just wanted to flag that there were 3 items in the regulatory agenda relating to the division of cemeteries and the cemetery board. Since we're flagging that, I'll just read them. It's very short. So the first item that was published is Part 200, considering amending this part pertaining to annual reports, the location of the cemetery board's principal office, and applications for funds to address vandalism, monument repair, and abandonment, which Louis has addressed separately. Check. Part 201, considering amending this part pertaining to offers of resale of cemetery lots to cemetery corporations, revisions to cemetery maps, holiday burials, rites of memorialization, mausoleums, columbaria, renovations, and retort replacements. And then lastly, Part 203, considering amending this part pertaining to the transportation of decedents during emergencies.
Our proposed regulations cover pretty much all of that, with the exception of major alterations, columbarium, mausolea, and retort replacements. And with the addition, which I think broke after we sent this for
Yes.
publication, of addressing the withdrawals of principal, because I think that was signed after we had sent this out.
It was. That's
There's a
correct.
delay in publication.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Although that does address the financial reporting obligations, so I guess broadly speaking, it's covered.
Any questions of council? Okay, thank you, David.
You're
Other business, we have an application from Ferncliff Cemetery in Westchester County for a columbarium.
With apologies to people who are getting sick of me, this is me. Ferncliff, I want to say, I have it in here somewhere. Within the last year, Ferncliff developed a section of various different cremation products towards the Ferncliff's built on a hill that slopes down towards the Sawmill River. And towards the bottom of the hill, they've developed a rather large section of smaller cremation products. Some of them are for individuals, some of them have multiple, are available for multiple families. And they're these little curb thingies. They're things that look like, I don't know the terminology, I think they look kind of like monuments, except you can pop a cremains into them, some of it is in ground, there's just different kinds of cremation products that are not just the large freestanding outdoor columbaria and in-ground burial that we're used to. They've been selling very, very well. By this application, there's a row of graves right adjacent to that section where there's some plantings and just some empty space behind. And the cemetery is going to move some of the plantings and put a row more of these smaller cremation products behind the existing graves. They're anticipating the numbers here. They're anticipating making money on this. Not a ton of money, but it's going to be a positive return for the cemetery. They're adding 131 cremation and interment spaces. It's going to net them only about 25 grand at current prices. My guess is that'll actually be higher because some of it will get sold this year. Next year's prices, they'll probably make a little more money. But it's space that they're not otherwise using. It will, in my opinion at least, actually improve the appearance of the area. It's just sort of unused space right there. And the cemetery clearly has a market for these kinds of products, as evidenced by how quickly it'd been selling out their previous go round. So we're recommending, my understanding is that there are no local approvals required for the project. From the perspective of the State Environmental Quality Review Act, SEQR, this is quite clearly, in my opinion, a type 2 project because you're dealing with, at most, if you can count as structures, and I think that's unclear, that the total square footage of them is way, way under 4,000 square feet, let alone individually. The area itself is not even, that's not the standard. 4,000 square feet is for buildings, but the entire area is smaller than 4,000 square feet, let alone the contents thereof. So we have not prepared a part 2. Even though the cemetery did a part 1, we have not prepared a part 2 or 3 on this because we don't think it's necessary. In fact, strictly speaking, if it's a type 2, you don't even have to mention SEQR, but I wanted to explain because it was in the application why we didn't do that. So the resolution we're proposing is approving this columbarium project, period, full stop.
Okay, and
At a cost not to exceed, hold on, where's the cost? Give me a sec. Where the heck is the cost here? Project. At a cost not to exceed $109,736.
okay. And it is being paid out of their general fund.
On the general fund, they have hundreds of millions of dollars in their account.
So I'll make the motion to approve the application of Friendswood Cemetery in Westchester County for columbarium. Apparently no need for to require additional local
No conditions.
approvals, not to exceed
$109,736. That makes sense.
I'll second that.
Second that, thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
The application is approved. Second application is from Cedar Grove Cemetery, Jefferson County. Termination of abandonment. Who?
Mike, Corey, which of you are going to do this?
That's me, Mike Steelman. So Cedar Grove Cemetery no longer has a controlling board, and they don't have enough funds available to supply for its care. So the division has determined that the cemetery is abandoned within the meaning of Town Law 291. Cedar Grove is a 10-acre cemetery. It's in Jefferson County. there are two locations. One is on Washington Street in the village of Chameau. And that location actually backs up to Sawmill Bay, which is has direct access to Lake Ontario. And then there's a annex to the cemetery that's located a couple miles to the west of the village on Route 12. We were notified in October of 2023 that there were issues with the cemetery as far as not having adequate funds, but primarily that the trustees, trustees were stepping down and they were unable to locate new trustees to fill those spaces. So I had a meeting with the town of Lyme and the members of the cemetery, and we discussed options, possible merger or fundraising, or putting on a drive to try to get new trustees. And then after that meeting, we had a special lot owners meeting in November of 23. It's advertised in local papers, and it was well attended. However, again, we discussed fundraising, trying to get new members, possible mergers, and we were unable to get any new members. At that meeting, the existing trustees mentioned that they intended to resign. So the cemetery has a total of $54,000. They do not have any equipment, as all the maintenance was taken care of by contractors. We've been in touch with the town of Lyme, and they're aware of the situation and they're aware of their responsibility. There was a delay from this 2023 meeting because we were trying to get written resignations from the trustees, and not all of the trustees had been in attendance at that meeting. So we were able to get those resignations. Once the determination's been accepted, the records of the cemetery will be turned over to the town of Lyme. And I've been in contact with the supervisor, James Millington. He's aware of this, and he received a copy of this determination letter. And as I said, the division has determined that the Cedar Grove Cemetery in the town of Lyme, Jefferson County, is abandoned.
Okay. Council, any comments?
Just to remind you, the way the regulations that we wrote in 2022 are written, your role is to confirm our determination or reject, or send us back to the drawing board.
I'll make a motion to confirm the abandonment, that the determination that the Cedar Grove Cemetery in Jefferson County has been abandoned to the town of Lyme. All right.
I think just abandoned.
Abandoned. All right. And I don't think there's anything else to that. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The determination is. Last one is, again, a determination of abandonment from Orwell Evergreen Cemetery in Oswego County.
Mike, this you again, or is this Corey?
That is me again, Mike Seelman. The Orwell Evergreen Cemetery in the town of Orwell, Oswego County, is no longer controlled by a board, and there exists no special fund sufficient for its care. And as such, the division has determined that the cemetery is abandoned within the meaning of Town Law 291. Orwell Evergreen Cemetery is a 13-acre cemetery in the town of Orwell, Oswego County. They still actually have 7 acres of unsold graves. In July of 2024, I was notified by the president of the cemetery, who also happens to be the supervisor of the town of Orwell, that's William Potter, that the cemetery was experiencing issues. They had trustees that were serving, however, they were running out of funding. The town had been partially funding the cemetery, and more or less things were, I guess, coming to a head as it was explained. So that meeting was in July of 2024. They advertised a special lot owners meeting on September of 2024, and that meeting was very well attended. 22 lot owners showed up. And again, we discussed fundraising and how other cemeteries in the area raise funds. There were no viable cemeteries that they could merge with. The town had already been providing assistance, and they weren't in a position to increase the assistance they were provided. We determined that the cemetery had approximately 2 months remaining based on the funds that they had. So at the end of that meeting, after much discussion, the lot owners, the trustees resigned, and that's included in the minutes of the meeting. And so the cemetery has a small building on the grounds. They have 3 mowers and various hand tools, and they have $9,238 in funds that's remaining. The town already has the records for the cemetery. And again, I've discussed all this with William Potter. He received a copy of this letter, and the division has determined that Orwell Evergreen Cemetery is abandoned.
Mark, before you make the motion, I just want to clarify something that's part of our routine practice is that once we've drafted a determination, before it goes to the board, we will typically email a copy to the town supervisor and mail a copy to all of the now former trustees of the cemetery to make sure and let them know when the meeting is, to make sure that they can participate if they have anything to say or object or what have you.
No way, if you reminded me, I should ask if there's anybody here that wants to speak to the board on this issue. Anybody from the town of the cemetery? There being none, I'll make the motion to accept the determination of the division that Orwell Evergreen Cemetery in Oswego County has been abandoned.
I think the magic word is confirm, not accept.
Confirm, that's all right, thank you.
None of that matters.
No, thank you.
But that's confirmed.
So it should be scripted.
I lost many months of my life drafting those regs, so that's the exact word.
So I'm here, sir. So if there's no other discussion, I'll make the motion. Second, all in favor? Aye. The determination of abandonment has been confirmed. We do what we can to prevent cemetery abandonment, but it's a part of the world we're in right now.
Can't save them all.
I'd like to add that this is Mike Silman again. I don't recognize any of the attendees online as being from Cedar Grove in Jefferson County or Orwell Evergreen in Oswego County.
All right. Thank you, Mike. The next cemetery board meeting is scheduled for April 8th in this room, 10:30 a.m. in this room. If it has to change, we'll let people know, but I don't think so. We now also have the opportunity for public comment. We welcome anybody who's to speak to the board on matters that come before us. Is there anybody online that would like to speak to the board? Is there anybody here that would like to speak to the board?
Sure, Mr. Chairman. David Fleming from the New York State Association of Cemeteries. I'm Dave Gonzalez to the cemetery board meetings. He's no stranger to cemetery regulation, and I find these meetings are always better if there's more than one Dave present. So thank you for being here. And also just thank you, Mr. Chairman, and the cemetery board and the division for the efforts to get the draft regulations out, so folks can have a constructive dialogue in advance of the SAPA process. It's really, every time that we've done it, I found it to be very helpful, and I think we can communicate really effectively when they're speaking to each other as opposed to through legal routes. So thank you very
Good.
much. We appreciate it very much. Thank you.
All right, anyone else wishes to stress the board? That being said, I'll just also give a shout out to Jessica for having her camera on, which I always appreciate. And I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
I'll make it. You second it. All in favor? Aye. Meeting is adjourned.